Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Grey Knight season. Before I get into the video, I just wanted to make a quick little announcement. I finally got a Discord set up and it is up and running. Thank you to James for basically doing all of it. The link for that will be in the description. We can just hop in there. A lot of Grey Knight talk, Orc talk, but I'm looking to build a very cool community. So if that's something you're interested in, please join the Discord. Thank you. All right, here's the video.
We hold this ground in the name of the Primer!
All right, so the topic today is going to be about CP. CP stands for command point. It is one of the most valuable things in the game. In games that I watch and in some games that I even play, I see my opponent use command points in really weird scenarios. I'm not perfect either, but I just wanted to make a video to showcase sort of like why you want to use command points, what you're hoping to gain from them, because like using a command point to reroll like a save on a model that's still going to get shot by like 2/3 of your opponent's army is not a very good use of it. So I'm going to break down why to use it. So what are we looking for? What are we looking to gain from using command points? And then the next slide is going to be talking about how to save command points and like what scenarios we're not going to use them essentially. So going through this, so number one is why do we use command points? To keep a unit alive is one of a very common ways to use CP. This is through like a command reroll of a save, armor of contempt for -1 to C, go to ground, really anything that might make your opponent survive your opponent's shooting or melee, whatever. And what's very important to note here is what your opponent is able to hit you with if you survive what you're using the command point on. So for example, let's say you have one wound left, your opponent shoots you with some storm bolters or whatever, and you take the storm bolters and then like you have a 2-up armor save and oh, I died. If I reroll this into a 2 and live, can my opponent shoot me with something else and potentially destroy me because then you're out of rerolls? That is like number one there. Armor of Contempt, same deal. If you're like gonna be cooked in the shooting phase like 9 times out of 10 anyways, there's no real point using Armor of Contempt in like that specific scenario. Next one is damage amplifying, like a key fight. So what I mean by that is like, did you make a charge to where if you don't like kill your target, that thing is going to swing back and wipe half your unit? It's like very important that you understand like, okay, my unit should kill this with or without my command points. So what you're going to do is like you make your charge or you line up to do your shooting. And then it's very important to look at the game state and like, okay, if I don't achieve what I'm trying to achieve with this fight or this shooting, what happens next? And if the answer is your opponent gets to run up in your face and kill you and score a bunch of points, then you need to make sure that you're amplifying your damage appropriately through CP. Like for example, if you have a command point to give you sustained hits, you can use to reroll hits, like all that kind of fun stuff. Other times is when it scores you points directly, scores you points. Great examples of this would be, let's say you have 10 OC on a point, your opponent does all of his melee attacks, and you fail one save, which is going to put you under the OC threshold for you to control the point when it comes back to your turn. You can consider, okay, so I have a 3-up armor save I just failed. Rerolling this would net me 5 points on my turn and allow me to keep my primary objective, right? That is something where I think CP is very valuable. Now, if you have a unit like standing out in the middle of nowhere and you just traded to go contest the middle, and then your opponent lines up a bunch of guns and is going to wipe the whole unit, like we don't need to use command points there because like we knew that unit's fate before we kind of went into it. And lastly, and this is probably where I use them, CP, like not the most, but this is where I think CP is actually just so important, is to give you consistency. And in a dice game, consistency is the name of the game. So what do I mean by that? So I always want to have at least one CP to reroll a charge. I don't care if it's a 4 or 5 inch charge. It is so important that you have that CP to almost guarantee those 5 or 6 inch charges. Now, has there been times where I failed, like a rerolling 5 or rerolling 6? Yeah, absolutely, but that happens like so few and far between. It's just a really good habit to always make sure you have one CP at least available for like a very key charge that you're trying to do. Another thing that's important is, let's say your opponent's big tank has 2 wounds left, and you just finished shooting the last of your shots into it, and you roll 2 damage with your D6 damage gun. You need a 3+. This is a scenario where if you have no other way to damage the thing, that CP rerolling it would allow you to remove a very, very important threat that your opponent has, and also like, you know, put the game more in your favor. And then lastly is like, you know, did you miss one shot with your big gun? That is like not an awesome one, but it is definitely something to consider. But again, whenever you're looking at CP, I think I'm going to circle back to like the middle point there is we're going to look at, okay, if I use the CP, what happens next? And then if I don't use the CP and the thing that I want to happen doesn't happen, also what happens next? And then you go through this whole checks and balance system in your head as you play, so you're not wasting CP on dumb stuff, which is what I'm going to show next on when you should not be using CP and how you should save it. All right, so the next slide here is basically the inverse of what we were just discussing. As when should you save your CP, aka not use it? This is very, very important because CP is a resource that is super important in the game, and not every army has a way to generate it. So I want to make sure that we're always using our CP to get the most out of it. So number one, from a durability standpoint, is your unit going to get destroyed anyway? And what I mean by that is we always want to look at the game and where our unit is and what our opponent can do to that unit before we're going to spend CP on Armor of Contempt or go to ground or a Feel No Pain or a command reroll on a save, right? If our opponent has three strong units that can charge or shoot our little unit that's standing there, like maybe it could survive one, and then maybe it survives two, but you for sure never ever make it through all three of these activations. We don't want to use CP on this unit in most scenarios. There's some pretty maybe in more advanced like ways you could look at this, but when you boil it really down, if your unit's going to get destroyed and your intention is to keep it alive, you really want to make sure you understand what your opponent's still able to do to your unit before you spend that CP. Next is, do you need any help to destroy a target? So that like the main stuff that here is like grenade, tank shock, access to sustained hits or lethals or etc. from your units. This really comes down to like your faction knowledge generally. Is if I like say a unit of yours and I ask, hey, how often does it destroy this? If your answer isn't immediately, oh, like every time or sometimes, that's when you go back to that checks and balance system that I mentioned in the first slide, where we look at, okay, what's going to happen if we do or do not destroy this thing? But what you shouldn't do is, you know, you have a opponent with a rhino in front of you and you grenade it, tank shock it, and then command reroll a hit. Like that is just not where we want to be with our CP. So just really, really analyze where we're going to be at when we spend the CP, because we don't want to waste it, because it is so much more valuable as the game goes on. Next very really relevant point is, does doing this thing that I'm considering spending command points on cause me to gain points and my opponent to lose points? If that answer is no, unless you are destroying an incredibly key target that your opponent has or a key unit that your opponent has, a lot of the time I don't really agree with using CP in these scenarios. Now, if you drew like March for Death and you're almost taking out a 5-point unit for you to kill, that is for sure something that we should do. But like if you say like you have the middle point contested and your opponent has a rhino sitting on it, and then you roll a 2 on your charge, like most of the time that it is just not worth it to command reroll that charge to go kill a rhino when you're already accomplishing your goal of contesting the middle point. I know that's not like necessarily a real example, but I played Razorbacks in my Grey Knights for like a long time, like probably for the last like 5 or 6 months I've been playing anywhere from 2 to 4 Razorbacks in every list. And the weird amount of CP that people commit to destroy those poor guys is so sad. Like at the Dallas Open, I had my opponent grenade it, tank shock it, and then charge it with the lion. That's like crazy. Whereas like sticking to the core of the video, the lion destroys that Razorback basically 10 out of 10 times, essentially. So like he didn't have to spend that CP essentially. And then another very important point here, and this comes as you get more comfortable playing the game and like planning out your next couple turns. Grey Knights do this a lot, obviously, but how much CP do I need for my next turn? So I'm going to take you guys through my inner monologue very quickly on how I determine how much CP I need for my next turn. So I'll go, okay, So currently I have 1 CP, and on my next turn I'm going to get 1 for holding for playing the game, and I'm going to need to save 1 to command reroll a charge, and then I'm going to make sure that I need 1 for doing 1 for anything else, and then I kind of scan the table. I look at, okay, my unit's going to be here, it's going to be charging this, I probably don't need a grenade, etc., etc., and I walk through the whole cadence of what I'm going to need CP for. And if I land on, okay, I think I only need 1 CP to do what I want to do on my turn, that's when I go, okay, now if I use CP here, let's go through the inner monologue of what's going to happen if my CP does the thing that I'm hoping that it does. And a lot of time when you like step through things like that, you're gonna find that like you don't want to spend CP in a lot of scenarios, or maybe you do want to spend CP in a situation maybe you thought wasn't worth it. So that's just kind of like my thought process on how I want to use CP. And yeah, obviously, like you want to have some for interrupts, etc., etc. Like if you're in a melee matchup, you kind of always want to pass into your opponent's turn with like 3 CP if you're playing like a melee army, because then you're like, okay, if he's going to charge me with 2 or 3 different things, I know that I'm always going to be able to hit him back. Also, like fight on death. There's a million things to do with CP. I just want you guys to stop wasting it because it's very important. So I hope this like video taught you anything really. It's a really simple concept of a video, not super exciting, but thank you for watching, and be on the lookout for some more Grey Knight stuff. And I'm planning a GT this weekend, so I'll be showing kind of the list I'm planning for that. Spoiler alert, it is not that exciting, but thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.